issues to the establishment in both the Republican and the Democrat Party. That's why the establishment in both the Republican and the Democrat Party want to see Hillary Clinton win this election. And that's why these people who have control and can flip the levers in these electronic voting machines, they've been shifting it to the conservatives. You think they might shift it to Hillary Clinton so then they can run against her 4 years from now? Doesn't matter. It isn't even about them beating Hillary Clinton 4 years from now. It's about them getting their agenda through. Paul Ryan and others, Mitch McConnell and others. They want the open borders. They want these transatlantic trade agreements. That has to be run through as far as they're concerned. They have to have this globalism, this consolidation. Now, who are these people? This is kind of interesting. You know, when you look at the exit polls, I mentioned that in Brazil, after that dramatic reversal, that one-day reversal in the official election polls, remember the Brazilian president was down like 10%. And then, after that, she's still very unpopular. They're trying to impeach her. And immediately after that, she was very unpopular. But for that particular day, with the official results, she won about 10%. How did that happen? And again, the exit polling company didn't do any exit polls. Now, we have an exit polling company here in America. It's called Edison Research Polling. You may not have known this, but they run all of the exit polling throughout the country since 1996. They run it as part of a pool. You know, they have these press pools. So when you go to cover a political event, in many cases, they don't let every single news organization into the event. They will have a press pool camera. It would just get too crowded. So what they will do is they'll have people who are part of the press pool. You will all get the feed from this one camera that's there instead of everybody having their own camera. So there's that kind of pooling that goes on with the press. Well, for the election polls, they have the National Election Pool. And this company, Edison Research, has, since 1996, provided all of the election polling, all the exit polling for ABC, NBC, CBS, the big three. In addition, CNN, Fox, AP, they all belong to this National Election Pool. And they all get their information from Edison Research Polling. Now, it's interesting, isn't it, that I don't recall, and I follow politics pretty closely, but I don't ever recall ever seeing any of these organizations that are part of the election pool that get this information from Edison Research. I don't ever recall seeing them publicize the kind of numbers that this organization, the Institute for American Democracy, they've got the numbers of the exit poll, and they're using that as the basis for their lawsuit, saying that Hillary Clinton and the DNC rigged the primaries against Bernie Sanders. But you've never seen these numbers that they've got here. They don't publicize those on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox, and AP. What you will see is you'll see cross-tabulations of demographics. They'll come out and they'll say, well, you know, this many of the women voted for candidate X, and this many of the men voted for candidate Y, and they'll break it down by age group. They'll break it down by income. They'll break it down by, of course, race, okay? Religion sometimes, okay? They'll break it down with all these different cross-tabulations of the demographics, but they won't come out and say, well, according to exit polls, Hillary got this many and Bernie got that many. You'll never see that. You'll never see the grand total, because that would look kind of bad, wouldn't it? If that number doesn't agree, and if it's radically different, way outside the margin of error of the regular polls, people would start to smell a rat, wouldn't they? So they don't report that information, do they? No. And so I hope that this lawsuit goes somewhere. I think that is very important. And again, they are waiting to get the crosstab results out of California to take a look at that. That's what we have to be concerned about in the general election, that it'll be stolen. That it'll be stolen, and it will be a joint effort by the Republican and by the Democrat establishment, who do not want to see a populist nationalist movement against their globalist trade treaties and open borders. That's what we have to be concerned about. Now, what's going on with the gun control agenda that they're putting on? And as I've said before, in the aftermath of what happened, and we see all these efforts to shut down anyone who tries to say that what motivated this guy was Islam. Of course it motivated him. He was a homosexual. He had nothing to do with his guilt except to try to punish other people. He had no cross. Okay? So he crucified everybody else. And it was his religion that motivated that. My wife has a friend from college, and she still follows people on Facebook. I don't do anything with Facebook. I hate that social media rigging. But anyway, she follows people that we used to know. And this friend of hers who teaches high school put up a thing on Facebook. I don't want to hear anything about Islam or Muslims. I don't even want to hear it. Don't even talk about that. This is a time to warn the gays. Oh, we don't want to talk about what actually motivated him to do this. We don't want to talk about the anger and the hatred and the religion that caused that. We don't want to talk about the open borders. We don't want to talk about the fact that Obama has gone in and has created all of this unrest in all these countries, as American government, not just Obama, but of course the Republicans before him. They create the wars, and then we reap the whirlwind from it, okay? Before I get into that, while I'm on this topic, let me go to this. Free Thought Project talks about the results of the Afghanistan and Iraq war. They say in spite of the trillions that have been wasted and the thousands dead, there are more Taliban in Afghanistan than there were before 2001. Oh, and with us there's a lot more heroin that's being grown out of that region too. That's another thing, okay? But they talk about how we have essentially created this problem. It's not Donald Trump saying we're not going to let these people in. Maybe it's us killing them. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. We're about to come to the close of our regular broadcast, but in the fourth hour, we're going to talk about what's going on with the watch list. You wouldn't believe that there are people who don't like guns that are more afraid of the watch list. And we're going to tell you how that works out when we come back in the fourth hour of the broadcast today. Before we go to these clips from Leon Panetta, I just want to remind you, we have a special, a Tim Kennedy special, 15% off Super Male Vitality, Brain Force, and Secret 12. And of course, Tim Kennedy, UFC fighter, special forces operator, someone who is in touch with his body. He trains intensively. And he's talked with Alex about how much he can feel the difference when he uses these particular products. Especially, we put them on sale, 15% off the Tim Kennedy special. You can find that at InfoWarsLife.com. Now, I've got a couple of clips that I want to play, and I'm going to go through these real quick, play them back to back. First of all, the talking points that are coming out from Joe Behar at The View, as well as former CIA head, former Secretary of Defense, former congressman, full-time scumbag, Leon Panetta. Here's what he had to say about Donald Trump.
I wanted to get your reaction to what Donald Trump said this week, which seemed to suggest somehow that the
President of the United States was complicit or involved in a conspiracy or looking the other way. This was Trump on the air on Monday with Savannah Guthrie on Today.
You said about the president, he doesn't get it or he gets it better than anybody understands. What do you mean by that?
Well, there are a lot of people that think maybe he doesn't want to get it. A lot of people think maybe he doesn't want to know about it. I happen to think that he just doesn't know what he's doing. But there are many people that think maybe he doesn't want to get it. He doesn't want to see what's really happening.
Why?
Now, I know you have endorsed Hillary Clinton, but if you could take a step back, if that's possible, and react to Donald Trump's suggestions about the President of the United States.
Leon Panetta.
Well, I have to tell you, in 50 years of public life, I have never experienced a major party candidate making the accusations and raising the innuendos that Donald Trump raised, particularly at this moment of crisis. My experience is when this country has been attacked, that this country comes together and unifies and tries to build a consensus about how we protect ourselves in the future. What Trump is doing is the exact opposite. He's not only accusing President of the United States of treason and collaborating with the enemy, but in many ways what he's saying about restricting Muslims from coming into this country, doing surveillance on Muslim mosques, is basically aiding and abetting the enemy.
Okay, let me jump into this point because we're running out of time here. We don't have time to play the other clip in this segment. I wanted to define for you who this guy was. Jeff Sessions encountered him a few years ago, asking him when he became Secretary of Defense, what would be the grounds on which we would go to war? You would come to Congress and act, right? And he says, no, we would talk to the well, actually, he was talking about how they would go to the UN, they would go to the to NATO to get permission, and he goes, but you would ask Congress, well, nah, probably not, but we would probably tell you what we decide to do at some point. And Sessions was absolutely incredulous. So we're going to play that clip for you when we come back. But I got to say, he's accusing the president of actually aiding the enemy. That is a known fact. It is a documented fact that we are giving arms to ISIS. We're running them through Turkey. We have documented this over and over again, and not just us. Many media outlets have documented the fact that we are supplying them with arms, going all the way back through Republicans and Democrats to the Mujahideen in Afghanistan fighting the Russians. We created them. We gave them the Stinger missiles. Then we turned them into Al-Qaeda. Then we turned them into ISIS. We created the terrorist playground in Libya. The Democrat administration, the Obama administration with Secretary Clinton, turned that place into total chaos. They're trying to do it in Syria. That's what he's talking about. Let me make that clear for you. We'll do that when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to the fourth hour of the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host. We're going to be joined at the bottom of the hour with Rob Dew, because we really want to expand this coverage of the terror watch list. And what is really, you should be concerned about this, folks. This is a very, very dangerous thing. We're going to break that down for you. We're going to talk about all the kids that are being put on the terror watch list, as well as the other abuses that are possible with this secret process. But we were talking in the last segment about Leon Panetta, and he's attacking Trump, and he's coming out and saying, well, he's not only accusing the President of the United States of treason and collaborating with the enemy, but what he's saying about restricting Muslims is going to get them mad, and they're going to attack us. And we've heard that before, haven't we? You know, I mean, do we really want to bring people into this country? Is that an argument for bringing people in this country, saying, you know what, if we don't kowtow to them, they're going to get violent with us? It's like, well, then maybe what we ought to do is just leave them where they are. We have always helped people in the past when there's been a natural disaster in their country. Now, our foreign aid doesn't really work too well. Most of the time, it gets sucked up by the dictators in these countries. They wind up taking the food from the people's mouths, but they do that anyway. And we really cannot bring people from all over the world into the United States without any background checks. I mean, all these people who are screaming about gun control, saying background checks, background checks. The guy who was a shooter in Orlando had been vetted by the world's largest private security company. He had worked for them for 8 years. He had been vetted by the state of Florida, had a statewide firearms license and many other issues. He had been investigated 3 times by the FBI. He had been on the terror watch list, and they hadn't done anything about that. His company worked for Homeland Security. So you got Homeland Security, the FBI, the state government of Florida, as well as the world's largest private security firm. Nobody saw anything in his background to stop it. Are we vetting people who are coming into this country that carefully, that closely? Of course not. We don't know a fraction about them that we do about him. And if there's refugees, wouldn't you think it'd be fairly evenly distributed between men, women, and children? Wouldn't it be distributed between all different kinds of ages? Why is it that we're only getting as refugees young men in their 20s and 30s who you would think would be fighting the people who are destroying their country instead of running out, okay? At the very least, they're shoving everybody aside and jumping on the lifeboats themselves. Those are the people we're bringing into this country. Where are the background checks for them? Where's the watch list for them? No. All the controls are for you, Americans. We've been told by Jay Johnson, Homeland Security, yes, this is a national security issue. Gun control is now going to become a national security issue, and we're really more concerned about those right-wingers than we are Islamic extremists. Of course they are. We've pointed that out a long time. So you've got Leon Panetta saying that Donald Trump is triggering people, okay? Now, we'll talk about triggering in a minute, but let's play. I want to introduce, who is this guy? Who is this former CIA? Who is this former Secretary of Defense? Here's an exchange between Jeff Sessions and Leon Panetta a few years ago.
We're working with an international coalition, and we're working with NATO.
Jeff Sessions.
We would want to be able to get appropriate permissions in order to be able to do that.
You'd ask him, what's the basis on which you're going to send people to war?
Countries would want to have some kind of legal basis on which to act.
What legal basis are you looking for? What entity?
To go to war.
Well, obviously, if NATO made the decision to go in, that would be one. If we developed an international coalition beyond NATO, then obviously some kind of UN security resolution would be the basis for that.